Figure it out.
Hello, this is Adam Koralik with Figure It Out Productions. The following video is part of our Quick Shoot series.
Hey guys, it's Adam here, and this video comes as a request from a bunch of you who asked me to talk about this at the time I make this video, the most recent episode of Playload, in which you guys said, hey, we really want to see that RGB modified Scart, RGB Scart modified N64. Can you talk about it? So that's what I'm here to do. So the point of this video is to explain kind of in detail how to get the best image quality out of the Nintendo 64, but this is kind of involved, so if you just want a quick answer, you're not going to get it, so stay tuned if you have patience. Now, this N64 comes to me from a buddy of mine in the UK. His name is Raymond. He's an incredibly good modder. I'll put his information in the description. I highly recommend you contact him if you have consoles that like desperately need repair, or if you just want some sweet modifications, because he's really good at it. And he did this one. Now, I'm going to proceed throughout the rest of this video with the understanding that you, the viewer, already understand what RGB Scart is. I will include right here an annotation to a video in which I completely explain what it is if you do not know. If you are not seeing an annotation, it's because you have them disabled. So enable them so that you can do that. Why would you disable them? I don't get that. But anyway, if you are for some reason sticking around, even though you don't know what it is, you're just like, fuck it, man, I'm in for the ride, I don't even give a shit anymore. It's excessive and unnecessary, but thank you. So what I will say to those people is that RGB Scart, well, Scart specifically in RGB mode is probably a better way to put it, is the best possible video quality you can get out of, it's just a really good video format. It looks like this. You know, it connects to the back of your TV, or it would, depending on where you are in the world. It was exclusive basically to Europe. It never came out in North America. And it gave you the best possible image quality out of most of the game consoles from the 80s and 90s, and we simply never got it. Really, everything prior to the Dreamcast and after the NES is really where it fits. So, you know, if it was like the PS2 or something, if you're going to ask me about that, no, don't anything after the Dreamcast and after, do not use RGB Scart. So there you go. But anyway, if you're going to use it in North America, you're going to need a little box like this. This takes it, converts it to a digital signal, and outputs it via HDMI so your TV can understand it. And it's in a more modern resolution. It's upscaled, but it'll, you know, something your TV, and if you're using a recorder, it will understand that as well. So that's really the kind of the point, is just like, okay, that's what RGB Scart is in a nutshell. Now, the N64. Natively, it's capable of 3 formats. The first is RF, and you should never use RF. RF is shit. There's no reason to ever use it. You can go into a Goodwill or any kind of thrift store and find N64, at least composite cables, for fucking nothing. They are so common because they came with the N64, they came with the Super Nintendo, they came with the GameCube. That same cable came with all of those. They are common as dirt. You can easily upgrade to those if you're using RF. There's no reason to ever use RF. Now, on to composite. Now, personally, I would never recommend composite to anyone on any console after the NES. The only reason I would recommend it on the NES is because Nintendo cheaped out and didn't give us anything better. Whereas Sega Master System, for example, supports RGB Scart. It's unfortunate that the NES is not capable of supporting it, because I bet it would look really damn good. But anyway, composite, here's the easy way to remember that composite sucks. You guys know those like police sketch artists, you know, somebody like reports a crime and then they have a guy draw up an image of this guy and it looks terrible? That's called a composite sketch artist. Or a composite sketch, I should say. You know why? It's a rough approximation of what the thing might look like. That's the way composite works. You know, it degrades the living shit out of the image and kind of shows you roughly what it's supposed to look like. It's exactly what composite video does. And then the best thing you can get out of the N64 natively is S-Video. Now, when it comes to S-Video on the N64, this is in of itself an entire web of shit. S-Video cables for the N64 are extremely common. Again, for the same reason. You know, the SNES and the GameCube both support S-Video, and they kept making them for years. Problem is, I bought a ton of them over the years. All right, I stopped a few years ago, but I will try to save you some time and some money right here with this statement. They all suck. Every single one of them, save one exception. This one, this purple one. Now this purple one is the single best one that exists. And I'm including the Nintendo brands. I really am. They are crap. In some cases, they actually look worse than composite. And if you're thinking like, oh, I'll go on eBay and get like a $2.99 S-video cable. They're really cheap. It's $2.99, whatever. You're gonna be sad. It's gonna be bad. You're not gonna like it. So don't do it. If you're gonna do this, do it right. So again, S-video, if you're going to do it with at all, this is the way to do it. These are purple ones, again, by a company named Monster. Now, these are really good, but the problem with them is that they're not particularly common, and they're not particularly cheap. A few years ago, because I had to do a bunch of research on this at the time, I came to understand that very few sellers actually still had these, and if they did, they were usually doing weird deals on them. Like one seller, the person I bought it from, was selling the cable for $60, and I was like, God, I don't want to pay $60 for an S-video cable. But alternatively, they were selling 3 of them for $25. Right? What the hell is that? So the other 2 I no longer have. I gave one away to my buddy Raymond, who did this, and I gave the other one to someone else. The other problem with them, too, is that they only release these in the United States. And even worse, Monster refused to sell them overseas, or even to Canada. Why, I don't know, but that's what they did. In fact, they also wouldn't let retailers do it either. And even a few years ago, they wouldn't allow eBay sellers to do it, which is excessive. And I don't know why they would still give a shit, but they did. And the only reason I even know that is because when I was doing research on these cables, I saw a lot of people, specifically in Europe, who were just like bitching and complaining. And I don't blame them. I don't mean to say that they were bitching as if they were annoying, because they were right to be complaining, that Monster refused to let them have these cables. And I just don't know why they would do that. But the point is, these are kind of hard to get. Now, how much they still monitor that, I don't know. I mean, now the Wii U's out, like, do they really still care? I don't know. Couldn't tell you. But if they do, the way to get these is to, if you're overseas or in Canada or something, the way you would do this is you probably find a buddy in the U.S., have him buy the cables and then ship them to you. It's not like it's illegal to ship them. It's just like Monster doesn't want people outside the U.S. to have them. And as an American, I apologize to the rest of the world that some American company would do that. So if that's the best, these things right here, this is the best you can do without modifying your console. The only other thing you can do to improve the image quality at that point is to get a S-video to basically either a component or, better yet, an HDMI scaler. So it converts from analog, much like this, converts the analog signal to a digital one so your TV doesn't have to do it. The thing is, and people commonly misunderstand this, when you plug in something like composite or S-video to a modern television, it has to convert it from an analog to digital format. But TVs do not do that very well. They have to do it to display anything, but they kind of half-ass it, whereas scalers are designed solely for that function, and they do it very well. So that's what you got to do. And at that point, it would look a lot better than it would, and you wouldn't need like a CRT. And I'm not going to go off on this, but there's no reason to ever use a CRT except for light gun games. So there you go. Now, if you're like, okay, well, that's great, but I really came here about that RGB Scart N64, and you've been talking for way too long. I'm starting to get pissed. Chill. All right, we got this. Like I said, this one has been modified for RGB Scart, and that's the best image quality you're ever going to get out of the N64. The way that modification works is there's a part on the board that controls the video, and Raymond told me this, but like I have a limited understanding of it because it's not... I'm not good at modding. It's not a thing of mine. I suck at it. But basically the way it works is you cut like one trace and then you like relink it to a few other points and bam, RGB Scart enabled. But it permanently disables the other 3. So no longer can use RF, composite, or S-video. So be aware of that if you're thinking about doing this. The other problem is that this really only works with North American units. It's ironic, actually. I mean, well, actually, you can... I guess there are Japanese units, like half of them, and almost all American units, except for the late ones, are capable of being modified for it. Whereas apparently almost all European or Australian units cannot be modified for RGB Scart. I guess there's like one French model that can, but that's what somebody told me, but I'm not even sure that's true. Point is, if you're going to modify it for RGB Scart, likely it's going to be the American model that you get your hands on to do that.
Alright, we are rolling here. Now, so you're aware, I have labeled down in the lower left corner what format you'll be looking at, so if it's composite or S-video or RGB Scart, you'll always know. I'm also obviously not doing RF, since that's totally pointless and actually kind of impossible to capture. Now, to keep this as fair as possible, what I've decided to do is just play the intro of Star Fox 64. I figure it's a game that a lot of people know pretty well. They've seen it before, and you can get a good sense of what all of them compare like. Now, I want to apologize for some of what you've seen already. I had recording issues when it came to composite and S-video. They're plugged in directly to the recorder. There's nothing passing them through. And the recorder was not really designed to handle 480i, so as a result, it's having issues capturing some of it, and of course the sound is all screwed to hell. But RGB Scart is of course going through that digital scaler, which compensates and outputs the image at 720p. Even if it's not natural 720p, it's enough to make the issue go away. I'm using a Hauppauge HD PVR 2, which is a phenomenal recorder, so to dispel any conspiracy theorists who say this isn't fair because, you know, you're having issues, it's a top-of-the-line recorder, but it's just not capable of doing this because it's just an old resolution. It did the best it could, and this is what the image looks like, save for one thing, which is all those lines. You see, like, artifacting kind of lines. Those are interlace lines, again, because it's 480i. Now, that is actually not visible on a television with the naked eye, but those lines do exist, and they exist in the RGB Scart footage. It's just that the digital scaler compensates for it, whereas the Hauppauge cannot do that. So I know this is kind of weird to think about, but you kind of have to ignore those lines. Really what you should focus on is the overall the colors and how bright they are and how vibrant, and the overall picture clarity aside from that. And I like I said, I realize that that's kind of difficult to do, but there's really no way around this because I no longer own a composite or S-video to HDMI or component even scaler. There's no real reason for me to hang on to one since I don't use it with anything. So that's I do apologize, but it was the best I could do. So I think it's pretty self-evident that the RGB Scart is far and away superior, even if you ignore the artifacting and or the line problems, and you ignore the sound issues, which are again just due to the capturing process in of itself. Yeah, I would highly recommend going ahead with the RGB Scart mod if you can. The thing is, I was not initially impressed or blown away, I guess is a better way to put it, by this mod. Maybe because I was expecting more, but when you actually line them up like this and compare them, you realize just like how good the mod actually is. So if you're interested in doing that, I would recommend it. Or if you need someone to help you with that, the guy I would contact is again is my buddy Raymond. His information will be in the description. So, you know, contact him, see if he'll do this for you, or if maybe you can find someone else who can do it, or maybe you have the skills to do it yourself. So, whatever. Anyway, that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, I will see you guys later.